you'll see here, they own 200 licenses. This is a partner account of ours, so we get 200 free, so there's 200 in here. But the key thing is you'll see 83 assigned, okay? And so normally we would see something like 100 owned, 83 assigned. Microsoft would look at that as 83% consumed. In this case, they're considering it 41% consumed, 83 divided by 200. And that's how they look at your deployment. But over here on the right, we can actually see that we're only using 20.4% of the functionality. So of all of those 43 services and plans, we're only using 20% of them. So when Microsoft says things like we have an 11% price increase on the M365 E3 because we included all these other new products, we can go and say we're not actually using them with data, okay? And I have the ability to actually dive into this and go and see which users are using this. Now, right now, because I'm in a demo account, this is anonymized. In a customer account, you would see your user here. But the thing here is like what I want to show is I can start to see things like, for instance, this user here has used this product or service that I drilled into. I think I went into Azure AD. So they've gone in, they've used it, but they haven't used it in 30 days. The last time they used it was in 38 days actually. This user here has had it assigned and never used it. This user's used it in the past, but hasn't used it in over 180 days. Why is that? Right? So when I'm starting to look at things, it's like, why is it that I have users that aren't using things and things like that? I can dive in and figure it out. So the reality is this person that hasn't used it in over 415 days was probably somebody that was given an account that never used it, or it's a service account that's never been used. There's all kinds of different reasons, and we can dive in and figure that out, right? But the key thing to note is I can go in and start to look at these things. Now, again, this is just a small demo account, but what I wanted to show you is when you start talking about security, Microsoft has this thing called the E5 Security Suite, right? And that's made up of Azure Active Directory Plan 2. It's made up of Microsoft Defender. It's made up of Office Safe Docs and all these different products and services. And I can go in and do the same thing here. I can see if my users are actually using these products, right? So if it's green, I can tell whether a user's using it. If it's yellow, I can't. Now, the reason for usually why I can't tell if a user's using it is that it's turned on at a tenant level, right? So what does that mean? That means that what that functionality is not set to the user, it is set to the tenant. And so when that gets turned on, all users in the tenant actually have access to that product. And there's no way to tell whether an individual user is using it because the tenant itself is protected. And that causes some licensing challenges because if I turn some of those features on, are users using it, getting advantage of it if they don't have the licenses that include in it? So there's some analysis that needs to be done. But again, when we're buying these things, I can go in and I can take a look and see if all these things are being used or not, right? And you'll also see that I can see whether they're being purchased through the M365 or through the E5, right? And you can tell here, just if I look at this second one here, this is Azure Active Directory Plan 2. So this user has access to that through an E5. This user here only has access to that through the E5 security. So I can actually start to differentiate where people are using it. So if you think about applications like Power Apps that I get in an E5, and then I can buy standalone, I can see if my E5 users are actually using it. I can see if my standalone people are using it, so I can see where it's bought to figure out what I need to be doing from a licensing perspective.